Okay, guys, in this episode, I discuss the new trade truce. What does it mean? What do we know? What do we not know? I talk about that. I also give my speculation about what I think about the situation. So, what direction do I see it moving? And what should we be looking for? So, if you want to get updated from my perspective, which is the best, then please take a listen. All right, guys, let's talk about the news of the day, the news of the week so far. So over the weekend, there was a lot of things coming out on Twitter. That's how I pretty much get my initial headlines of the news. A lot of things were talking about the Trump trade deal and what's going on in North Korea. A lot of information out there. So someone who is very interested in this part of the world, I decided to take a little bit of time today and go through some articles and kind of give a little bit of my perspective and go through what we actually know. Now, please forgive me. I am a little bit tired. I have not slept in almost a day, which isn't too bad, but maybe I hopefully don't trip over my words here. So let's see what we got. So first off, I have been reading in most U.S. sources, there is a huge emphasis on, I'll put it this way, reading U.S. headlines, you get the impression that the United States has capitulated to China. Without going into details of articles, like just going through Twitter or reading headlines, I got the impression that, it looks like we are just giving up, all of our advantages to the Chinese, and Trump is showing that he cannot deal with negotiation. However, that's not exactly the case. So if that was your impression, I don't think that's exactly what's going on. When I went ahead and I like to look at Reuters for some good initial news. And let's take a look here at what Reuters puts up. They have a headline from yesterday, and it says, actually from Saturday, Trump says China trade talk back on track, new tariffs on hold. So we have the United States and China agreed on Saturday to restart trade talks after President Donald Trump offered concessions, including no new tariffs and an easing of restrictions on tech company Huawei in order to reduce tensions with Beijing. So right there contains a lot of the useful information we need to know. For somebody who doesn't want to know all the nitty-gritty, is we haven't gotten rid of the old, according to this article and all the others I've read, we have not reduced the past tariffs. We've already put hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs on Chinese goods. We have not gotten rid of those. Okay, so people who do believe we are going soft on China, people should realize that we have not gotten rid of the old tariffs. We're agreeing not to put new ones on. What's going on with Huawei? So let's continue here. It says China agreed to make unspecified new purchases of U.S. farm products and return to the negotiating table. This is regarding the tariffs. And no deadline was set for progress on a deal, and the two world largest economies remain at odds over significant parts of an agreement. So it continues talking about what Trump says. Trump tweeted after hours that the meeting with Xi went far better than expected. The quality of the transaction is far more important to me than the speed, he tweeted, and I am in no hurry, but things are looking very good. So the president had threatened to slap levies on roughly $300 billion of additional Chinese goods, including popular consumer products, if the meeting in Japan proved unsuccessful. So if anyone remembers, the president had some pretty inflammatory language before the G20 meeting, kind of almost giving an ultimatum to President Xi or Chairman Xi of China that if he did not come to the meeting, that there would be more additional trade problems with China and the U.S. And it looks like, who knows if that worked or not, or if Chairman Xi had already planned on meeting him. Regardless, they have met and they are talking, which is good. Trump offered an olive branch to Xi on Huawei Technologies, the world's biggest telecom network gear maker. The Trump administration has said the Chinese firm is too close to China's government and poses a national security risk, and has lobbied U.S. allies to keep Huawei out of the next generation's telecommunication infrastructure. So, Trump, as we know, it's not just Trump; it's the U.S., the United States Commerce Department, and other entities, other administrations, other agencies in the United States. Sorry, I'm kind of tripping over my words here. Other agencies in the United States have identified Huawei as a risk. And I think that they are, and I think that this doesn't change that. Trump, what's interesting is this article says he offered them an olive branch, which, yes, that's true, but it makes it seem more positive than it really is. Because Trump has not said that we are going to allow Huawei's 5G technology into our 5G network. And in fact, it says in the article that the department has put Huawei on its entity list, which bans it from purchasing technology from the U.S. But Trump said that that as long as there's not a national security risk, he would allow sales to continue, but they haven't agreed to it yet. It still has to be researched. So that's what I have read, is that it still has to be researched, that it is not guaranteed that they're going to take Huawei off of the list, but it looks like that's what they're going to do. That's what they want to do. So that's important information. It seems like everybody, well, I'm not sure what everybody believes at this moment, but this is a step in a positive direction. Now let's go ahead and read what we see from the South China Morning Post here. Get a little bit of a perspective from the other side. So from the U.S. side, people are they're trying to make it look like Trump is giving China a lot. It's interesting because on the Chinese side, they're playing the opposite card, which is kind of what you'd expect. It says Trump's Huawei's promise met with silence from China as Beijing plays down prospects of progress. Let's take a look. They go into detail about the meeting, the two guys getting together. It says let's take a look here. Xi and Trump at the G20 summit in Osaka. The government published only a short statement summarizing the talks. The statement published by the official Xinhua news agency and the foreign ministry did not mention Huawei, but only said that Xi had asked Trump to treat Chinese companies in a fair manner. Huawei have been placed on the U.S. Department's entity list, which bans U.S. companies from selling equipment and components to the Shenzhen-based manufacturer, while Washington has also frozen the company out of the U.S. 5G network. So that's key. They're still frozen out of the network. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're going to be allowed to start. I mean, that would truly be a cataclysmic failure, in my opinion. It says, but at his press conference, which followed the meeting with Xi, Trump announced that the U.S. companies could resume sales to Huawei as long as the products involved did not threaten national security. Trump, though, said the decision on whether to take Huawei off the entity list would be left to later, adding that he will have a further meeting on Tuesday to discuss the issue. So, we are leaving Huawei towards the end. We are seeing what goes on with the trade agreement, said Trump, suggesting that fully lifting the ban on Huawei would rest on a deal being made to end the trade war. Okay. So, let me go ahead and pause there for some ads, and then I'll talk about what I think about this. Hey everybody, this ad is about a podcast called A Little About a Lot podcast. I have not seen it, so take it at your own risk. A Little About a Lot is a variety show by YouTubers, Kelsey and Becky, behind the channel The Sorry Girls. Kelsey and Becky spill tea about their personal lives, talk about the struggles of relationships and dating. Becky is married and Kelsey is not. Oh my. Research their favorite celebs from the 90s, answer audience questions, interview some badass people, and more. We want to challenge perspectives and leave our audience feeling refreshed, inspired, and with a little more knowledge about a lot. Search your podcast app for A Little About a Lot podcast and subscribe to the A Little About a Lot podcast. And that is it for this. Okay, so what we have here is, like I said, let's go over some key points. What we've seen is that the United States is agreeing not to put on additional tariffs onto Chinese goods. Have not announced a plan that I can see to get rid of the tariffs that are currently on Chinese goods. We are going to take steps to allow Huawei to start doing business, to start purchasing U.S. technology and components again, but that is not finalized. They are still on the banned entity list. So this is things are moving in a positive trade direction with the Chinese, but nothing has been settled yet. Okay, so that is important to notice. Now, the Chinese have agreed to purchase agricultural products from the U.S. This is interesting to me because from what I reported on my last podcast, China is probably going to have to purchase goods from the United States anyway because of their huge outbreak of swine fever, which is killing off large portions of their pork population, their pig population, and the army worm, which is going after their corn supplies and other vegetation that they use for food up in China. So it seems as though we don't necessarily need to have them agree to purchase these products. Personally, I think a lot of the issue has to do more with the IT problems, or the IP issues. If I had to guess, I would say this is probably more related to IP, hacking, things like that. Because, to be honest, it probably has to do with that, and then also easing. If I had to guess, I would imagine a large part of it has to do with hacking and IP theft, and then also allowing our companies to compete more fairly with their companies. So maybe allowing decreasing their tariffs on our imports, because the Chinese have already had large tariffs on imports from the United States in order to prevent people from buying too many American-made cars and stuff like that, because obviously they want to support their own manufacturing. So I imagine he'll probably push for that. I imagine they'll be pushing for IP, for hacking, and who knows what else is on the table. But I'm going to throw another piece in here. I also think that there's a North Korea element involved. As everybody knows, North Korea and the U.S., Donald Trump officially was the first U.S. president to step onto North Korean soil this last weekend. I think that there is probably a connection. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not making necessarily a prediction. But I do think that there probably is a connection between the trade deal and North Korea, because as we saw, Trump was making a lot of progress with North Korea. And then a little while after, the Chinese chairman, President Xi Jinping, met with Kim Jong-il, and then Kim Jong-un, and then afterwards, I think Vladimir Putin also met with him. And then we kind of had a heating up of rhetoric again. I am wondering if maybe because I personally believe that we have, it could just be the media I'm reading, but it seems like we have the upper hand on China in terms of the trade war, right? We literally could it seems as though we could take down Huawei, and it seems as though if China refused to import U.S. agricultural products, that eventually they would suffer too much themselves. So it seems like we already have the advantage. So, like I said, why are we making these moves? Maybe there's some deeper things going on. Maybe North Korea is involved. Maybe the U.S. is also talking with with China about North Korea and saying, listen, we need to get something done here, or else we are going to take this all the way to the end. We're going to clamp down on Huawei further. We're going to make sure that the tariffs are increased unless you come to the table and help us figure out North Korea. Because Trump has talked about how China could fix the North Korea problem. And it makes me wonder if that's what part of this is. If this is also an issue with North Korea, not just about trade, not just about IP theft and things of that nature. Anyway, there's a lot going on, and it's way too early for people to be. It's way too early for a lot of speculation. Like I said, all we know is that no new additional tariffs. All we know is that they're looking at taking Huawei off the entity list, but they have not said that they're going to allow. It depends on national security. So they could buy components from the U.S. as long as it doesn't affect national security. They've also not said that they're going to allow Huawei parts to be used in 5G infrastructure. So these are just going in the right direction. Nothing crazy is happening yet, but it looks like things are going to start moving pretty fast, possibly, but we don't know. So this is very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with North Korea. Obviously, I'd love to see something work out with North Korea, but we'll see. So that's what I got to say for today. I apologize if things are a little discombobulated, a little tired, confused, but things are looking positive.